Hey everybody, hope you guys have had a great week. This video is something that's a little bit different than what I've done normally, and I'm curious if you guys want more of this. Basically, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Max as a character. All the information we know about Max as a person compiled right here. And if this video does well, I've been considering doing it for other characters, such as Warren or Sean from Life is Strange 2. So, without further ado, we're going to go into a deep dive on Max. Max Caulfield was born on September 21st, 1995. By the time of Life is Strange 1, she is about 18 years old. Max's star sign is that of a Virgo, which makes complete sense for her as a character. It matches her nervous tendencies, her want to make everything perfect, her modesty, and her keen eye for details, and that's what makes people call her nosy. Her parents are Ryan and Vanessa Caulfield. She seems to have a great relationship with both of them, as they are constantly texting her words of encouragement. They're keeping up with the news and things that's going on around Arcadia Bay and messaging her about it. Her father specifically sends a few texts related to, depending on what happens to Kate Marsh and how Max is involved in that, as well as the supposed, threatening text messages that Max gets. Vanessa, Max's mother, also keeps in close contact with her daughter. She is the first person to text you after that little, choosing whether or not to report Nathan in the girls' bathroom, as well as in the alternate timeline where Chloe is disabled and Max is part of the Vortex Club. Her mom texts her reminding her not to spend too much money, which I think is kind of funny because Max can be a little aloof. Even though the Max we know is very by-the-book, smart, it's funny to imagine this much more aloof, just spending money willy-nilly type of Max. It's pretty safe to say that Max is Irish, considering her last name, as well as the fact that Chloe a few times makes some jokes and references to her luck. Now maybe this is just related to the time travel stuff, but Caulfield, just look at her. She's definitely Irish. So thanks to the farewell episode of Life is Strange Before the Storm, we get a lot of insight into Max as a kid and some of her odd favorite things growing up, which is very interesting to me. So for example, this is one we learn in the main Life is Strange game, but she remarks that October is her favorite month because of the weather, which, my favorite month too, honestly. I feel like it's the best month, also because Halloween is the coolest holiday. What are you dressing up as? I'm gonna dress up as a responsible adult who attends college. Anyway, according to herself in the farewell episode, in 2003, her favorite animal was an Arabian horse, her favorite food was lobster rolls, and her favorite class was library, which I haven't heard a class be referred to as library since I was in elementary school. So, no, Farewell is such a good episode, and it's very nostalgic, even for people who don't necessarily love Max and Chloe. I think just the way it's written as a whole is very nostalgic and very well done. At some point before 2008, Max and Chloe, as kids, decided it would be a great idea to try to break into Chloe's mom's wine and have a taste testing session. And this ended with them spilling the wine all over the floor, and it's still stained to this day. When you play Life is Strange 1, the stain is right there. Then in 2008, William, Chloe's father, passes away when Max is over, and then shortly after she moves away. Now the interesting thing about Max moving away is that it's not 100% clear whether or not she told Chloe. For example, in Life is Strange 1, it appears that Chloe was very blindsided by Max. She talks as if Max just up and left one day without any kind of warning. However, we know that in the farewell episode of Life is Strange Before the Storm, it's actually a player choice on whether or not Max tells Chloe or not. So I think that's very interesting, and it makes you wonder what is the canon choice. I think also the way that Chloe talks about it and how, for lack of a better word, dramatic Chloe can be about certain things, it's possible that Max told her. And then on top of that, Chloe, in Farewell, says, I know you're leaving, I could tell. So it could be another example of Chloe being dramatic for the sake of being dramatic and wanting that attention. I feel like that's a central part of Chloe's character. She really begs for attention by acting out in these ways, and this could be a small example of it coming through, that even though she was told, or was at the very least somewhat aware of the move, she sort of plays willful ignorance to be like, well, you just up and abandoned me. So that's certainly one way to look at it, but it is an interesting question nonetheless. Little fun fact about Max is she may be ambidextrous. In episode 2 in the Two Whales Diner, Max eats her breakfast with her fork in her left hand and the knife in her right hand. However, when she has breakfast at the Price household later, she is flip-flopped. Her fork is now in her right hand and her knife is in her left hand. So this has begged the question of, is Max actually ambidextrous? Or is this just a developer oversight? I think it's fun to say that she's ambidextrous. It just adds another layer to her as a character. There's also a few different sequences throughout the game where she uses her right hand as her dominant hand and then her left hand as the dominant hand, and kind of flips back and forth. That's just a good example of it that you can directly point to. Circling back to Farewell a bit, this whole story is about Max and Chloe finding an old, hidden time capsule from 2003. It's a very heartfelt, very well done episode, or bonus episode, that reunites the original voice actresses for Max and Chloe. Because as we know in Before the Storm, Chloe's voice actress had to change due to a strike that was going on. Once Max left, we know a little bit about what happened in her time in Seattle, as well as what was going on, like, shortly after she left. We know that Max is a horrible texter. In Before the Storm, her texting to, she hardly texts Chloe and slowly falls out of touch with her, saying, oh, we'll call on this day, oh, I'm sorry, something came up, I can't actually call you. Things like that, and then she slowly just sort of moves on with her life. So not too much is known about Max's time in Seattle. It is a little vague. The stuff we do know comes from her journal, as well as a few snippets of dialogue when you look around her dorm when she's at Blackwell. We can assume that Max learned guitar during her time in Seattle, as when she comes to Arcadia Bay, she knows it pretty well. She said she enjoyed her time in Seattle, that it was great for the photography, but she always felt a little lonely, as if she was out of her league, which, for Max, as someone who has social anxiety, makes a lot of sense. But she did have friends. Max had two friends, Kristen and Fernando. All we really know about them is that they got drunk at the Fremont Troll, so, I don't know, they seem like fun people. We also know that Max attended a Latin class in Seattle, so that's interesting. We can also assume this is where Max got her first camera, the one that she breaks at the very beginning of the game when she drops it on the floor. It appears to be modeled after the Polaroid 600 series of cameras, more specifically the Job Pro camera. The other camera that Chloe ends up giving her is also based off of a Polaroid camera, but it's the 1200 series, 1200, what is that, SI from Polaroid. In 2013, Max was granted a scholarship to Blackwell Academy, sending her right back to where she grew up. It's implied that most of the reason that she decided to come back was because of how well-renowned Mark Jefferson was as a photographer. This is where my research was kind of a little creepy. There's such a high amount of detail in this first Life is Strange game that gives us so much information about Max and her life that it almost makes me feel creepy. Her room number is 219, her student ID number is B1OT21F2015. And it's assumed that 2015 is like the expiration date, which makes sense as Blackwell's sort of like a seniors only kind of thing. It's only like a 2-year, which that's really weird. We can get into that some other time. I might do like a deep dive on Blackwell Academy as a whole. On Max's computer, you can find a few different tabs open, such as one for a website called Camera Porn, which is just all about vintage cameras. And it also changes depending on the day of the week. Sometimes she's doing more research on her powers, sometimes she's doing more school-related things. It just depends on what day of the week. Max's classes include world history, algebra, language of photography, life drawing, media literacy, the art of science, cultural anthropology, physical education, music, and and other media, photography, and science courses. In my mind, I always kind of viewed Blackwell as a college, so reading that list of classes and seeing that it is like your typical high school, and it's just really an extended senior program, does kind of put it into perspective a bit more. I don't know, when I think of dorms, when I think of specializing in a certain art, I think of college. Max has a 2.8 GPA, so I can say I have a better GPA than her. Which I know isn't really much, but hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. A win is a win. It's possible that Max has some sort of developmental disorder, that being autism spectrum disorder or ADHD, something along those lines, because she is an IEP student, which means Individualized Education Program. And it's usually reserved for students who have those sorts of learning disabilities. I just thought that detail was very interesting. However, it could also be a bit more of a general thing just because of whatever her concentration is at this school. They have to sort of tailor a program to each student. However, if it is the earlier idea that she does have some sort of developmental disorder like that, it would also make sense, as Max does have some issues with her empathy and social skills in general. It's entirely possible that she has one of those disorders. Some other people theorize that Max has some sort of depression or BPD disorder, bipolar disorder. However, the creator of the game never wanted to specify and say flat out that Max has a certain, whether it's a mental disorder or anything like that. They never wanted to go concrete with it because they didn't want to stigmatize it. So it's possible that she suffers from something, however, it's not fully confirmed, and I think that's the best way to do it, just so it's not stigmatized, because not every person with autism acts the same, not every person with depression acts the same, so I think it's a very wise decision to go that route. Now we're going to get into some of Max's interests, as well as some smaller things that I really didn't have like a full section for, so yeah. Oh my god. I use the campus printer for these scripts just so I can like have them in my hand. I accidentally took someone's vehicle registration paper. Oh. I'm gonna return that. Okay, where was I? Max's interests, right. We know that she's a fan of World of Warcraft, which is a very nerdy MMO, and definitely makes sense for her, I would say. I can't really imagine Max being much of a gamer, but with how high fantasy that whole thing is, it does make sense. And considering her love of Final Fantasy as well, making reference to Final Fantasy Spirits Within, a movie that exists. No, I have no right to criticize Max for her movie taste. I'm a huge fan of all of the Resident Evil animated stuff, even though they're good. They're good to me. They're entertaining. How about that? According to David's file on Max, Max uses the online aliases Mad Max, Max Factor, and Noir Angel, which is interesting. She has 81 friends and 12 subscribers on her social media profile. And with Max's sort of nerdy interests, to me, it's no wonder that her and Warren became friends. Even, naturally. If we take out of the equation that Warren is clearly head over heels for Max, and they had a completely platonic friendship, they'd still be close friends because Max loves World of Warcraft. She clearly likes to talk about all the weird films that Warren mentions. So it's not a one-sided thing where he's always bothering her, and this kind of stuff proves it. One of the other things I love about the first Life is Strange game is its music, and a lot of that music exists within the world. Max is listening to music through her earbuds a lot, and then we as the player end up hearing it. So her music tastes include exactly what we hear, which includes artists like Sid Matters, Alt J, and Jose Gonzalez. And a little fun fact, when Max is playing on her guitar, she plays an instrumental version of Crosses and Something Good, which to me shows that she has a special interest in Jose Gonzalez as an artist. Finally, in Life is Strange 2, if you choose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay instead of Chloe, which you're wrong, but anyway, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I don't criticize anyone for their choices just as long as you're not hating on double exposure for no reason, okay? That's my only thing. Anyway, if you were to pick Bay over Bay, you would find a picture of Max and Chloe together in David Madsen's trailer in Life is Strange 2. Neither of them are smiling in the photo, and that's on purpose. In a recent Twitter exchange, the creator of the game was commenting on the fact that, spoilers for double exposure, Max and Chloe break up. And he was commenting on how it makes a lot of sense to him that their relationship after something so traumatic would be so strained. And that's why he had it so they weren't smiling in that photo. That things weren't all just hunky-dory because we got away. That it really was taking a toll on both of these characters. This is also very important because Life is Strange 2 was developed by the original people behind Life is Strange 1. Unlike, let's say, Before the Storm or Double Exposure or True Colors, which were all done by Deck 9. So that's why I still stand behind my statement earlier that the characters breaking up makes a lot of sense to me personally. And finally, in Double Exposure, Max is a live-in photographer at Caledon University. She has a few friends, Moses Murphy and Safi, as well as an apparent love interest in Amanda. And that's really all the research I've done on Max in Double Exposure, as I don't want to spoil the game for myself. I know the early access has been out for a bit, but I do plan on playing it all at once on my own and then writing a video about it. So, but yeah, that is everything I have on Max Caulfield. Let me know if you're interested in this sort of character bio breakdown type video. Because if you are, I would be more than happy to do this for characters from Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange Double Exposure, things like that. Just really go into the details of who they are as a person. So I'm sure you can hear the construction or whatever work being done on my floor, so I'm gonna wrap it up right here. I hope you guys have a great evening or morning or, you know, whatever.